This episode was originally a live conversation recorded at the CEF Founders Conference back in June 2025.
Somehow she's worked it out with the family and the workplace, and she hits 42. Now that's when the career elevator takes off for men. 42 to 55. That's when everything happens. Rarely does much happen after 55. So that is exactly the time at which the woman enters perimenopause. And we don't talk about it.
Welcome to the Swisspreneur Show, a podcast about startup stories and learnings from experienced entrepreneurs. If you enjoy listening to our show, make sure to follow the podcast and leave a rating. And now, here's your host, Silvan.
So up next, we're going to continue with the first panel of the day. We're going to talk about women in tech. And it's my pleasure to introduce the panelists one by one to come on stage. We're going to start with the first entrepreneur. She is driven by pushing technological boundaries with her company, Phoenix Technologies. Her focus is AI, quantum, and blockchain. From Switzerland for the world, please welcome Carla Winger. Thank you for being here. This will be your seat. Our second guest coded or wrote code in the 90s in Berkeley in the United States. Then she shook up the TV world here in Europe with her company Setu that she built and scaled over the past 20 years. Please welcome Bea Knecht. This will be your seat. And last but not least, we have a real pioneer and entrepreneur in the clean tech space. She is globally recognized for building not only scalable but also sustainable solutions. Please welcome Sandra Trittin. Great to have all three of you here. I'm going to dive right in and I want to have an opening question to all of you. Let's start with you, Carla. What first got you excited about joining the tech world?
I've seen a video that was, I think it was around 15 years ago. It was done by code.org, which is a nonprofit, and there were like all the big names speaking. And it basically said almost half our life is dominated or kind of driven by code, and only 5% of people can code. So this is quite intimidating when you think about it. So I see technology as the thing to move humanity forward, and I wanted to be part of it.
I love that. Bea, when did it click with you for the tech world?
I think there were two triggers. First of all, I like playing with Legos, and coding is a bit like clicking Legos together. And in fact, there's a Lego system which is called Mindstorms, which is programmable Legos. And I wanted to become a Lego engineer, and then my parents said there is no such thing. Later on, actually in 1995, I consulted for Lego. They had a division called DACTA, which was educational Lego. And so that was at the beginning of Mindstorms. I was able to give some inputs to Lego. And I came home to my parents and I said, there is such a thing as a Lego engineer, after all. But of course, in the meantime, I had studied computer science. And I did that because we had an accounting system that didn't work. And I thought I could contribute something to that. I did not expect to go as deep as actually building the chips and building the computer and building the operating system and building the database, which is what I wound up doing.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that story.
Sure.
Sandra, what got you hooked into the tech world?
So originally I have a business background and I worked for a long time in telecommunication, but then I figured out when we had a project about building up the network lines and digitalizing all the plans and how to build that there was much more that you could work on and much deeper on the technology stack to also improve, to increase efficiency. And this just made me excited about it. And then when I had the opportunity to step into energy and clean tech, there was a full new world opening up about heat pumps, about solar panels. So I'm really always interested to go one step further in technology.
Amazing. Carla, you are working at the forefront of AI, probably the technology right now. How are women represented in that field?
So I had to look that up on ChatGPT. Apparently, a recent study from the Graduate Institute in Geneva says that there are 22% women working in AI in Switzerland. So I wanted to know how this compares to Europe and the US, and it's approximately the same. But the difference is that only 60% of women in Switzerland work full time. So as compared to like 75, 78% in the other countries. So I think we're quite well represented in the average, knowing that 22% still is quite low. But I mean, this is an endemic problem that not enough women really go into STEM proficiencies. The pipeline of women in this domain is rather slim. And I think for this, 22% is quite good. There are only 14% in senior leadership roles, which is really like a pity because I think the diversity of teams really makes a difference and makes us progress better and more long term. So we still have to work on that. Yeah.
I hope we can come up with some ideas on this panel on how to do that. Sandra, during our prep call, you mentioned something, a very practical example of recruiting for a CTO role. Please share that example here because it was really quite shocking to me to hear these numbers.
Yes, that was also shocking to me. So I'm sitting on the board of a few companies and one of them was looking for a CTO and there were like more than 350 applications. 5 of them were female. So being eligible into that round and that was really shocking because I knew that the level is really low. But that it is as low, that was really surprising to me.
So I feel there's the ChatGPT numbers, of course, on an average for a county, but there still seems to be a big difference on a very operational level. Bea, having worked in tech since the 90s, I also wonder what was some of the best development that you have seen over time to get more women into tech?
Probably hormone therapy. So I would look outside of tech. It's not a tech-only problem. You could go into the fashion industry, and who's in charge of a fashion house that's mostly serving women? A man. So, if I may, a couple reasons. So, I made an essay. It was published in a number of places with 6 reasons why women have obstacles in their careers, or to put it differently, what they can do to succeed. And so some of my recommendations include increased use of tools. There seems to be something about tool usage among women that I'm picking up on that I find unusual. A bit of rejection of tools. And, if I look at, say, the tools I used for chip design in the 80s, actually in Berkeley, it was inhumane. They kept crashing. They were prototypes. The tools themselves were prototypes. They were really harsh, learning experiences. And I think many women just say this is stupid. And yes, they are stupid and they're built by men for men. And so they're not always suited for women. But let's build better tools for both. But to reject the tool outright is probably not the answer. So I think there's an element about tool usage among women. Plus, tools take time to learn. Women sometimes go like, by the time I've learned that, maybe I'll have a baby. So that's a problem, right? So it takes time to learn tools. And then I had a few other, maybe less spectacular findings until I recently stumbled across the menopause. So if you look at female careers, right? So they, like everyone else, enters the workforce, usually better educated. At universities now, 60% women, right? So they're not stupid. And they communicate better. They have a larger vocabulary at, a younger age than men, and they keep having a larger vocabulary than men. And communication in this day and age is very important. So you would think they have all the reasons, to succeed. So they enter the workforce, they encounter a male environment. And there's a tradition of ascription of competency to men versus women. So they have to overcome that stereotype. And then there's really the first filter, right? If the first filter wasn't university education, meaning less STEM, right? Then the second filter will be, does she become team lead or not? Which means to overcome that stereotype. So second filter, right? Then there are interruptions in her work life, maybe care for family, parents, child. Then that's basically then the third filter, right? Now, at some point, somehow she's working it out with the family and the workplace, and she hits 42. Now, that's when the career elevator takes off for men. 42 to 55. That's when everything happens. Rarely does much happen after 55. So that is exactly the time at which the woman enters perimenopause. And we don't talk about it. And it's a problem. And we've come out of a cohort of women for the last 20 years who's grown up under the directives of the Women's Health Initiative, which was published in 2002. And it said, better not supplement with hormones because you might get breast cancer. Now, that was actually from estrogen that was derived from horse urine. So today it's different. And the study has indeed been debunked 2 years ago. So in theory, today it's all, go ahead and do it, but try to find a gynecologist who says, yeah, we'll do that. Or go to the pharmacy and the pharmacist wouldn't look strange at you. So this is a new thing that this cohort of women now has to learn in order to biohack our way into a continued career. There's young leadership where we're disadvantaged, and then there's elder leadership where we're basically wiped out. So that needs to change.
And there's also another aspect when we pick up what you said before, Sandra, the talent pool, right? It seems to be not very diverse, the talent pool that you can access. So how do you actually hire for diverse teams in a talent pool that is by itself not really diverse?
I would better say the talent pool is diverse, but probably in a different way than we expected.
Okay.
And then I think it's more what Bea said, is to help that talent pool to get into that flow, right? And to overcome all the different obstacles. And this could be also in about shaping the requirements for a specific job in a different way so that it fits a bigger area of the talent pool, right? But also starting early and bringing kids close, no matter which gender or which nationality, closer to the STEM possibilities, right? And to technology.
This episode is sponsored by Google Cloud. On December 4th, Google Cloud is hosting the final edition of the year for their event series, The Founder's Story. They're taking over the Forum Escher at Google Zurich for a panel called From Entrepreneur to Investor. Join us to hear directly from visionary leaders about the transition from building companies to funding them and the challenges and rewards found along the way. Speakers include Andreas Göldi, partner at B2 Venture, Nicole Herzog, co-founder of Umantis, angel investor and board member, and Mathieu Chanson, founding partner at Very Early Ventures. If you're a founder or CXO in Zurich, you should definitely be there. It's happening at 6 p.m. on December 4th. Check the link in our show notes to grab your spot before it fills up. A big thanks to Google Cloud for bringing the community together for this one. Carla, coming to you, if you think also to already support girls at the young age to potentially access that talent pool as well, what can we do or what has already been done to support girls at the very early age to go into STEM, etc.?
That's a good question. There's already a lot being done, especially in Switzerland. The problem is a little bit that the moment in the life of young kids when they have to decide in which direction they want to orient themselves is also a little bit the moment when girls start to look for more girly stuff, right? And it's a bit uncool to be driven by mathematics or natural science or whatever. So it's kind of uncool to be a nerd at this age. Later it becomes really cool. But so it means that at this point of time, you have to kind of create additional pods or platforms where girls can inform themselves about these kind of topics and find peers with whom they can exchange and feel comfortable. And so Just to name a few, there's a Smartfeld. I have two little girls, 5 and 6. They've been doing a program, it's called Little Scientists, where they build Lego together with an iPad, and then they program a dragon that is like blah, and everything. And they do that at the age of, I think they start at 4 or 5 already. So it's the fact that you bring kids to like these kind of topics early on. Then I've seen ICT scouts. It's like football scouts, but they scout for IT talents in 4th grade. The older kids, not just girls, but also the boys who kind of stick out. They are allowed to join a campus every second Saturday for free, where they meet peers and they can work on really cool projects and problem solving in this area. So you kind of pull together the like nerdy kids, and they then meet peers and they really enjoy spending time together and actually excel at what they do and even become better and will become the future of the technological foundation of Switzerland. So there are quite a lot of projects in that area. It needs to be more, of course, and it needs to be better known by parents in general. But
Bea wants to add something here.
Yeah, so this sounds hopeful. However, there's the element of risk-taking. So risk is just essential to a startup. Without risk, no startup, nothing ventured, nothing gained. And I think that needs to be discussed, in a family setting, in a town setting, in a company setting, in a school setting, as a country. What does it mean for women to take risks? This culture that we traditionally have experienced protects women to some degree, and it expects the impossible of men. And I think that thrusts men into risks that may be unwarranted, and then it sort of always has the women trying to shore up what their men are doing at work, right? Maybe the man is really pursuing the main career, so the woman's role is more to keep everything together. I think we need to re-normalize that it could be the other way around. They could be mutually supportive. Women have to start taking risks. And then about the nature of the risk, one last thought. We're very good at recognizing fake news. A study just came out proving that. We're not very good at recognizing something that's true. I could tell you some scientific fact, and half of you would go like, if she says so, we'll put it on a parking lot and sort of look at it later, right? Maybe she's right, maybe she's not. You don't recognize the truth. And so if you don't take AI, right? So there's a difference in culture between Silicon Valley, which is all AI now, and Switzerland, which goes like, yeah, we heard this AI gun went off. We heard the blast maybe, right? Maybe something happening, not sure yet what to think of it. Well, if you're looking at news in this way, then engaging and doing something with AI becomes a crazy risk. If anyone does it, you go like, oh, she's insane, But it's not insanity once you understand the truth in good news. Then it becomes a probabilistic exercise. It becomes a business venture with a certain expected outcome and no longer something crazy. So we should stop thinking of Silicon Valley as courageous and crazy and anything like that. They're not. They have a particular kind of intelligence, and that is to recognize when something is true. So we need to learn how to pay attention to what's happening in science and technology and make a note when something's actually true, and not try to be smart and wait and not be at the bleeding edge. Let the bleeding edge, be the problem of the Americans, and will then be the fast followers. You'll never be the fast follower. With AGI, it's a winner takes it all kind of thing. So I'll close with that note about risk taking.
Sandra, you want to add something?
Yeah, and probably based exactly on that risk taking, just coming back to that point of diverse groups of people. if you see, for example, in the energy or clean tech space, there's also less women. So now you are in a company, then you are asked to take some risk, right? And to take a decision. So you're already, let's say, on the minority, and then you need to stick out your head and say like, no, but I think this is going to be different and I want to do it in a different way. So you have almost like double the hurdle to overcome that and to convince the people around you. So I fully agree we need to in generally reduce that thinking of risk is something that only exotic people can do or crazy people can do, but which should be natural.
All three of you are great examples of taking risks, entrepreneurial risks, etc. But what helped you specifically, Sandra, to take these bets and these risks and say, yeah, let's go and do that?
Excitement.
Okay.
I would really say I live for that topic. If you want to know anything around energy transition, I do that every day. I see electricity everywhere, how to control it, how to balance it. That's my passion, right? And I think that helps a lot to overcome the hurdles. But I also have to say thank you to all my co-founders I had always, which were actually always men. And actually the first startup here in Switzerland, the second one now in Belgium, one I'm doing on my own. And they have also supported a lot and supported also a lot about overcoming all these, let's say, hurdles about women, men in technology, etc. And just as an anecdote, quickly, the first meeting I had with an electricity supplier here in Switzerland, we went, the three of us. And at the end it was said like, oh, and Ms. Trittin, for sure you can arrange our meetings, right? So we will send you the name of our assistants and then you can align with whom to talk to. And then one of my co-founders stood up and said like, no guys, we all have our calendars open here and we can do that ourselves. And these kind of things are also useful and helpful to support that.
I love that.
Yeah.
Before I ask you the closing question, we can also take one question from the audience. Is there anyone who would like to ask a question to the panelists? Not right now. Okay, well, then I ask you the closing question. If there's one recommendation, let's keep it short and simple, one recommendation that you would like to close this panel with. Let's start with you, Carla.
I would really recommend that all of us, men, women, everybody, is looking at biases, and not just gender biases, but biases in general. There has been very good video tutorial by Lean In. So it's leanin.org, and where you basically can find in like 15 minutes what the typical biases are and the traps that we all have. It's not that men have more biases than women. We all have the same biases, right? And it's only by being aware of your biases that you can actually raise above it and try to eliminate some of them. It's not possible to erase all of them, but like some of them.
Yeah, what's your recommendation?
My recommendation would be to go for it, especially if you're a nerd. Try solo founding. That's going to be a trend of the future. If you look at the UK pop charts in 1970, mostly groups, 80% groups. In the top 10, if you look at it now, 80% singer-songwriters. So there will be a similar trend in startups towards solo founders, men or women. You can get the team once you're going. This is different from years past, and wish you much success.
Amazing. Sandra, your closing?
For me, it's support, to support each other, because I think no matter which topic, we can only make it happen together.
Oh, wonderful. Beautifully said, and a great point to end this panel. Thank you so much, Carla, Bea, and Sandra, for being here today. A big round of applause.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, you can support us by rating our show on Apple Podcasts. This way, we can reach an ever-growing number of aspiring entrepreneurs.